Hello, and welcome to the Film School Snobs. I'm Alexander Zapeta,
And I'm Jalen Michael.
and welcome back. Today we will, after we discuss some movie news, we're going to be reviewing *The Five Blood*, Spike Lee's latest joint. Jalen, how have you been this week?
I've been pretty good, still under quarantine and just still observing and everything that's coming in, but I'm managing. How about you?
Mhm. I'm doing pretty good. We got a new movie for the first time in a while. It feels like.
Yeah.
Um, thank God, because I'm getting so bored with everything that's on streaming services.
Yeah, right.
I'd say there aren't great things out there, but like I need some new, fresh, and exciting stuff every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, from the movies that were supposed to come out in theaters that they pushed to the streaming service, I haven't really gone out of my way to check them out yet. But
Mm.
listen, man, whenever Spike Lee's got a new project, I'm in day one.
Exactly. Yeah, so we've had some interesting home video releases. I haven't seen a whole lot of them. I heard Capone was a pretty interesting film that like was kind of controversial. Like some people loved it, some people hated it.
Mm.
Scoob got like critically panned, from what I could see. Onward was pretty great. And Lovebirds I still have yet to see. Um, but yeah, this is kind of the new trend for Hollywood, just like releasing stuff on streaming services. And I'm interested in seeing like how that's going to continue throughout the rest of the year because a lot of what's going on is still very unpredictable. Um, for example, transitioning to some news, Tenet got delayed by 2 weeks. It was
Yeah.
originally supposed to come out, I believe, July 14th, and it's now been pushed back to July 31st. Jalen, did you see this coming?
Actually, I mean, I guess we all kind of just assumed that things would not be getting better by July 17th. But yeah, I mean, as we're seeing more states open up and especially more theaters are opening up, I think Warner Brothers is just, hoping for within those 2 weeks that more theaters, especially in like New York and LA, that more theaters will be open by the time they open, by the time the film opens. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. I need better confirmation to see like, okay, it's safe to go out into these crowded spaces. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing that's always annoyed me is like how hard Nolan is pushing for everybody's like rush back to the theaters once like the quarantine is lifted. And I get Nolan has his love for cinema. I love cinema. I love seeing movies on the biggest screen possible. But at the same time, right now it's not exactly the safest time to do so.
Nah.
So even pushing it back by 2 weeks might not be the best idea. Like it might be best to postpone it in like an entire year, or at least like towards like the latter half of 2020. At least until like we have confirmation there's a vaccine and like people can get vaccinated. Um, but until then, like, who's to say that we'll feel safe in a big crowded theater again? You know?
Yeah, and even with the precautions, because I know like right before the quarantine hit, we went to go see the Invisible Man,
Hmm.
and they had the precautions where they only sold like 50% of the seats available, and you can only buy seats like what was it, like 6 seats away from one another.
Yeah.
So even with that, it's still like I don't know, I don't feel safe.
Even then, when we went to go see Invisible Man, either there were a bunch of invisible people in the theater, or nobody wanted to go see movies anymore. Like,
Yeah, I, that's
I get
one thing I'm actually banking for.
what do you say?
I said that's actually one thing I'm actually banking for with Tenet is that nobody actually wants to go. So then it's like, oh, I got a theater to myself. This works out.
That really would work out. I'm just going there, spray the whole theater with like the Lysol spray, and it's like, okay, now I can watch the movie.
I'll go in with a gas mask first, and then I'll do that. More
Yeah,
immersive.
but yeah, like I mean, that's why movies like Onward, like I thought Onward would have paid it big because like Pixar movies usually make bank, animated movies make bank. Um,
Hmm.
but the Onward bombed like really hard. I'm like, oh geez, I wonder how come. And then like 2 weeks later, we go into quarantine, and it's like, oh, like this. I'm not gonna lie. Immediately when things first started getting serious, I wasn't taking it all too seriously, and it wasn't until a little while in where I started to realize like the dangers of the virus. And
Right.
because of that, I'm like, well, I just want to go to the movies. I want to go to the movies. And now I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to the movies anymore.
Yeah. Right now I'm on the whole video game wave, which like, yeah, movies could wait. We got some cool stuff coming out, so I'm good sitting in my little apartment.
Mhm. Yeah. So hopefully, the world will be better soon, and we can go back to the movies. But until then, Tenet being released July 31st. Maybe we'll see it. Maybe we won't. Depends on the state of things by then.
Yeah,
Um,
honestly, I really just hope they pushed it to next summer, but I don't think that's happening.
I mean, that's what Fast and Furious did, and at first I thought that was a bit like too much, but now I'm starting to think like that was like the best choice.
Yeah, Universal was ahead of the curve with that.
Yeah. And then we'll start seeing movies that were supposed to come out like in November and December starting to delay, like Dune, or what else was supposed to come out later on this year?
Coming to America.
Coming to America.
Um, Something else I forget. It's another big movie. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So going on to some more news, Gone with the Wind has been removed from HBO Max. This isn't permanent, mind you. They're going to put it back, but they're temporarily removing it due to the Black Lives Matter movement being really big right now. And they plan on putting it back on with like more educational stuff and more informative stuff about like the stereotypes of the time. Jalen, what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I think it was kind of pointless. Yeah, I mean, if you know anything about Gone with the Wind, obviously it's one of the most, even like adjusted for inflation, it's like the biggest movie of all time. Everybody knows it, and everybody knows Hattie McDaniel's, plays a Mammy character. Not saying that it was right. Of course, it's highly offensive, but it's just the way it was back then. That's the only type of roles that African American people could have gotten back then. And I don't know. I think HBO Max removing it, even temporarily, is just like, I don't see what the. I don't think so. It's just because at that point, it's kind of like you're trying to hide your history. At that point, it's
Mm,
just like people are gonna complain about it, but just keep it up there to see like, yeah, this is where America was. Not that it's gotten that much better, but roles have been expanded upon for Black people since then. So, and
mm,
plus, also, I've seen Go Out the Wind several times, and you know, Hattie McDaniel, she puts on a phenomenal performance, but it does still kind of get me irritated just to see her play that Mammy type character. But I mean, look, that was like what 1938, so I don't know. It seems like a whole big hoopla for nothing, to be honest.
yeah, I get that. I guess I have a different kind of like point of view from you, where I don't so much like criticize HBO for taking it away because it is, like I said, it is temporary. And they do plan on putting it back on with like more informative and educational stuff about like why the stereotype was there and how we've grown from that, somewhat grown from that. I think it's a lot better than like the way Disney handles their racial stereotypes in their past films. Like they just refused to put in Song of the South on Disney Plus, and they took out the Jim Crow scene from Dumbo. Um, or they just
Mm-hmm.
tried to like completely wipe out their history and act like they were peachy clean all the time. Warner Brothers and HBO, they've always just like been upfront about no, this is the time they were in. This was 100% wrong, but we're not going to erase it from our history. Like if you look back at the Looney Tunes cartoons, like they had a lot of racist jokes in them. But for the cartoons, they'll have informative text saying yes, these jokes were wrong, but they were a part of our history that we cannot erase. Um, so in a way, I kind of maybe removing it right away wasn't the best idea, but definitely this is something that people do need to be educated about when they do watch the film. So I understand where HBO is coming from with removing Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but at the same time, for me, it's just like I feel like, and I don't have like actual facts to back this up, but I feel like the people doing the most complaining is usually not the actual group that it's offending.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if you've noticed this, but on Twitter, it's usually like white liberals that complain, "Oh, this is too offensive. You got to take this off." Meanwhile, the Black community is just like, I mean, we don't care, you know. But either way, I really don't care. I still think Gone with the Wind is still, one of those greatest of all time
Oh,
movies.
without a
It's
doubt.
not something. It's not something I would like go out of my way to rewatch consistently, but it's still just a marvel to look at, and it's a great story too. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a whole big hoopla for nothing.
Mm. Yeah. Do you think it would have like come off a lot better if they didn't remove it? They just instead put in that information right away.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. Maybe it sounds messed up to me, but honestly, I wouldn't have even addressed it because I mean,
Mm.
Going with the Wind for years now, it's always been targeted because of Hattie McDaniel's character. And I mean, it's kind of messed up too. She was the first Black woman to be actually nominated for an Oscar for that role, but I don't know. It's a lot of history there with that. That yeah, I don't think you would just want to wipe away completely.
Mm. Oh yeah, I 100% agree. But like, I think the important thing to remember about this is they aren't wiping it away completely. We're like taking a break from it and then eventually putting it back on with the information there, with like warning
Yeah,
people about like the stereotypes of the time.
yeah, I get that.
Hmm. And so moving on to another piece of movie news, let's talk about something a bit more light, a bit more cheerful. We got a trailer for the new Bill and Ted movie that's coming out in August of this year. Hopefully, maybe. Jalen, what have you ever seen the first two Bill and Ted movies?
I actually did, and I'm probably like one of the only people in the world who just doesn't care about these movies.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I mean, not that they're bad or anything. I know a lot of people love them and they're enjoyable, but it's not something that I'm a big fan of like that. So, when the news started coming out that Bill and Ted is coming back, I was like, okay, cool for the fans of that. Seeing this trailer though, excuse me, seeing this trailer, I guess it's everything that the fans would want. Uh, yeah, pretty much the same old. Just they're old now.
yeah.
It looks interesting.
I really enjoy the Bill and Ted movies. I think they're really funny, especially me as someone who loves a lot of like classic rock and classic metal. Those are movies that just always appealed to me. And Keanu Reeves is great. Like I'm a huge fan of his. I love him in The Matrix and Speed. I love him in a lot of movies. Like he's not like the greatest actor, but he's just like a good personality. Um,
Sure.
and those movies were just always really funny to me. In terms of this trailer, it doesn't really give away a whole lot. It's just more saying, "Oh, hey, we still exist. We're coming out in August. Please come watch our movie." Um, so it doesn't really give away a whole lot of information. The only thing that did confuse me is that like, they're supposed to write another song that's supposed to save the world. Like I thought they already
Yeah.
did that in the second movie. Um, so I'm interested in seeing in what direction that goes. But yeah, overall I'm looking forward to this movie. I haven't seen anything that like dissuade me from the movie yet, so hopefully we get another trailer with like more jokes in it, and gives us a lot more details about what's going on in this movie.
For sure. One thing I do say about the trailer that was a pretty cool touch was the Orion Entertainment logo. It looked very old school. I know that's like a little nerdy thing, but I thought it was pretty cool. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's hit you in the nostalgia feels.
So moving on to some other news, some video game news. Sony had an event on Thursday where they revealed a lot of new exclusive games for the PS5, and they revealed the design of the PS5. Jalen, what jumps out to you from this event?
Uh, well, there was four things that stood out to me the most. The one obviously is the actual hardware reveal. I think the console looks amazing. I know everybody has the memes about it looking like a router, but I don't know. It looks very different, very futuristic, cool.
Mm,
Second one was the announcement of Horizon Forbidden West. Huge fan of Horizon Zero Dawn. Uh, so just getting the confirmation that this game actually exists, great. Ratchet and Clank was also another standout for me, but the biggest standout was the fact that GTA 5 is now going to be on three different generations of consoles.
yeah.
And that amazes me. It's like, wow, this game came out when I was like, what, a sophomore in high school, and I've graduated college, and it's still getting re-released. That's a game that you can milk for centuries. It seems like. So
Same.
I don't know.
It's same thing as like Skyrim, where like they just keep on re-releasing the same game. It's like, no, we want a new installment. Oh, you want Skyrim remastered? You want GTA remastered?
VR remastered too, so I think GTA is up next for that now.
I mean, who would want to go on a VR crime spree in GTA, right?
Yeah, get virtual lap dances. All the
Oh God.
losers be proud of that.
Oh God. But yeah, so they revealed some interesting stuff. Surprisingly, not a whole lot of like franchise stuff, not a whole lot of sequel stuff. A lot of originals. The one that definitely stood out to me and looked the most interesting was Returnal, the game about the
Oh yeah.
astronaut who goes in like space and like is now like in this like Edge of Tomorrow, die, live again loop. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we also got the one thing that appealed to me, being the Spider-Man fan that I am, Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Mm-hmm.
Which like everybody's confused at first. They're like, is this the official Spider-Man 2? Is this just a spin-off? What is this game? And it's going to be an expansion of the PS4 Spider-Man game that's going to be remastered onto the PS5. So that looks really
Oh,
interesting
wait,
to me.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, because I thought Insomniac they had tweeted that it was its own standalone spinoff, like I guess in the same way Uncharted Lost Legacy was
yeah, that
for
was a
Uncharted 4.
comparison I was gonna make. It's gonna be more like a Lost Legacy type spinoff thing, but I think it does come with the Spider-Man remaster and PS5.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that was the big standout to me. Horizon, what was it, Forbidden West or something like that?
Yeah, Forbidden West.
Yeah, that looks really good. I still have yet to beat the first Horizon game. It's kind of big and overwhelming, so I'll get around to it eventually. But it's just like the concept for that game overall is just really unique. It's robot dinosaurs, and we're back in tribes and stuff. It's really cool concept, which I need to finish the game soon. But yeah, overall there's some interesting stuff. I remember just looking at the live chat, a lot of people like really upset they didn't get more like franchise stuff. Um, and like whenever they saw original game, like this is lame. Give us GTA 6, and it's like, well, guys, let's give them a chance to show some new stuff, some interesting stuff. Maybe this will become one of the next big franchises. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. Because even like the stuff from like big developers like Bethesda had the Deathloop game. I
Mhm.
thought that actually looked really cool. It's a cool concept for it.
Yeah,
Seems like it might have like interesting storyline to it also.
exactly. I will say the one thing that did disappoint me. This is me being very hypocritical, but I wanted a new God of War. Like
Oh yeah.
they left off on this huge cliffhanger where Kratos was about to murder Thor, and it's like, I want to murder Thor, please. But I guess we're gonna have to wait a couple more years for that.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, that's also another game where I'm just like super excited for to
Mm.
see the sequel for. But yeah, I mean, listen, Sony, they're supposed to have another conference in August, followed by Microsoft's July conference. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see like a little teaser for it.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I'm also hoping like at some point between now and then, because I know they've been talking about this for like almost 2 years now. I hope at some point they announce an Elder Scrolls 6. Huge fan of Skyrim, so yeah, I want more. And we even, like I said, they keep on just remastering the same game. It's like, okay, well, give us something new, please.
Actually, didn't they announce Elder Scrolls 6 like
They
two?
did, but they never like showed any
It
official like gameplay or anything. I think for now they're just like mostly like pre-production.
right. It's just now in development. They did the Metroid Prime 4 thing, which we're now in development. And then 2 years later, okay, we have to restart development. So we'll see you in another 3 years. Like,
Oh God,
ah.
yeah. Hopefully, we get some like interesting stuff from this new generation of gaming. Um, so who knows? I know a lot of people were really like underwhelmed, disappointed with the PS5 reveal and like the games that were revealed. But I say, just give it a chance. Wait for the games to come out. Wait till like the reviews come out. Wait until like people actually get their hands on these games. And for all we know, like they'll become like new classics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was actually surprised. I didn't know that people were actually disappointed with it. Because I thought the whole showcase was pretty great.
Mm.
Um, some things that a lot of people are looking forward to seeing that we didn't get, but the stuff that they did show, yeah, like you said, it looks like it could be new classics. So I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I mean, I will say the thing I've noticed, especially with like The Last of Us in the gaming community lately, they just want everything to go their way. It's
Yeah.
just nerd community in general. Like if things don't go their way, if they don't get exactly what they want, they get all pouty. So
Mhm.
what can I say?
Everybody thinks that they're some type of esteemed screenwriter. They know what's best for characters. It's like, all right. So make your own game then.
Exactly. Make your own game. Um, so moving on from there, let's go into our feature for this week, where we review The Five Bloods, the newest Spike Lee joint. Jalen, would you like to tell the audience what the film was about?
Yeah, sure. So, without getting too wrapped up in the story, because I think the best way to go into this is going in a bit blind. But essentially, you have these four Black Vietnam vets who, after years, they return back to the land so that they can recover their one of their comrades as well as gold that they had hidden uh, deep in the Vietnam jungle. Their comrade, who was a fallen soldier, who played by Chadwick Boseman, he was like this type of radical leader for them. Uh, they do it in honor of him to recover his body and bring it back to the United States. And then along the way, you have chaos ensues. You have this sort of Uncharted meets Apocalypse Now type of film, and
Mm.
I'll just say right off the bat, I thought it was really really good.
Yeah, same here. So we're gonna have a short spoiler-free section, and then after a little while, we'll jump into spoilers for the film. But yeah, I thought this film was fantastic. It's definitely messy and unfocused at times, but like I think for this, the good definitely outweighs the bad. And there's just so much good in this film, from the performances, the filmmaking, and just like the way the film really just like tugs at your emotions.
Hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Because it's what we've been talking about with Spike Lee for the past 2 weeks is that he gets very much in your face and just bluntly tells you how it is. And then yeah, it's love it or hate it style. Some people could think it's too overbearing, uh, but if you're like me, who's just accustomed to that and really loves that style, then yeah, I think this is definitely a film that you'll have a lot of fun with and actually take a lot out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, without a doubt. Just like yeah, Spike Lee just has a lot to say about the treatment of like African Americans in Vietnam and like how they're treated when they returned home. And even within the film, like they even start talking about Rambo at one point. This is like towards the beginning of the film, and they very bluntly say, "Oh, they've never made a Vietnam movie about somebody who looks like us." And like until now, I just realized, wow, they really never made a Vietnam film about African Americans. Like the majority of the famous ones, Platoon, Rambo, Apocalypse Now, have all been about the white experience, you know? Um,
Hey man, well, you had Bubba from Forrest Gump. He doesn't count.
oh, yeah, that's right. Well, to be fair, A, Forrest Gump isn't a Vietnam film, and B, Forrest Gump is the main character of the film, and we see his perspective in Vietnam. So, but yes, rest in peace, Bubba. You're great.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I agree with you saying because it's something that I read up on in a couple of classes the past couple of years, but how black soldiers, especially back in Vietnam, they were fighting essentially two campaigns, where it's like the victories overseas, it's a victory at home, because a lot of black soldiers they felt, especially in the '60s, like, well, if we go win this war for this country, maybe they'll start giving us basic human rights. And obviously, as we see when they return home, that did not happen. Um, and they're kind of just left to fend for their own. It's really messed up.
Yeah, and it's definitely stuff that like they address in the film. Especially Chadwick Boseman's character, who's like very
Mm,
much just like preaches a lot of like the messages of the film, to the characters in the film and to the audience, about the way African Americans are treated in America and how they're treated in Vietnam. And it's interesting because like now they have this like double layer of like a lot of the characters have this like double layer of PTSD where they had to deal with the horrors of war and then having to come home and not being wanted. Um,
right.
and it's a very interesting like dilemma that like Spike Lee explores that, like I said before, really hasn't been explored all that well in film before.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even how he keeps the center on black soldiers, but just the Vietnam War as a whole. I mean, our soldiers came back home and they were called like they said in the film, they were called baby killers. And Spike, he really makes you see how visceral that war was. It shows flashes of like grisly images of dead babies with their face blown off. It's really kind of hard to take in, but it's just a straight reminder like, no, this country, it's very complicit in a lot of the evils that we see in this world.
Mm. Yeah. I will say the show stealer for me was definitely Delroy Lindo as Paul.
Uh,
He definitely gets like a lot of like the spotlight to shine. And he gives him one of his best performances. And he just like really does a great job at like displaying like this trauma that his character is feeling. And like he carries a lot of the emotional weight for me personally.
yeah, no, without a doubt. Well, I think almost to kind of a fault because him and Clark Peters characters, they're the two bloods that get most of the shine.
Mm,
The other characters are not that developed, but Delroy Lindo, you're right, he really does kind of single-handedly carries, a lot of the emotional impact this film has.
mm.
Almost to a point where it kind of gets kind of theatrical, but I mean, he gives like this whole 5-minute monologue where he's staring directly at the camera. Where it's like, Jesus Christ, like I kind of just want to give him an award just for that alone.
Exactly. I mean, if we do have an award season, he deserves to be nominated because out of like all the films I've seen so far this year, which isn't many, he's probably given my
Mhm.
favorite performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's either him or Will Smith in Bad Boys, and it's a toss up, man. It's a toss up.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, yeah, I will agree with what you said that to a fault that he gets a lot of spotlight because a lot of the other Bloods don't get as much development, as much time to shine, and then
Mhm.
at times when that development does come in, it kind of feels like I don't know, it kind of feels like it's not warranted and it kind of falls flat. And then I will say the biggest killer for me from watching this movie was like a lot of the scenes feel like they drag on for way too long. Where
Yeah,
I feel like I got the point like 2 minutes ago, and you probably could have edited this down a little bit to make it a bit more tighter.
yeah, no, for sure. I agree with that 100%. And it was mostly in the second half, surprisingly, because I felt like the first half of the film, it was moving at a it was moving pretty slow, but I like the pacing of it, where we're introduced to the characters and we're introduced to the world that they're coming into. Um, and then you get to the second half, things are supposed to be happening, but we spend a lot of time lingering on well, they're supposed to be human and intimate moments, but it feels like, yeah, like you said, they could have edited out a few lines of dialogue to just make it a tighter script.
Mm. Yeah, so overall, The Five Bloods is definitely a film worth watching. Solely for the fact that it's like the most interesting films come out since February. So So definitely give this a watch. And from this point on, we're gonna go into spoilers for The Five Bloods. So if you have not seen the film, go watch the film. We highly recommend it, and then come back and listen to the spoiler-filled section.
Yep.
Um, so Jalen, what are some moments that like really stuck out to you?
um, well, I'll say this because I had saw it twice. I saw it Friday, and then last night I watched it with my dad. And the one scene that I was waiting for his reaction on was when Eddie there just got the gold, and then Eddie backs up and then just explodes on a landmine, and just seeing all his limbs just completely blown off. It's like, okay, Spike Lee is getting into his Tarantino bag, and I'm kind of here for it. But
Mhm.
that junk was crazy.
Yeah,
I was actually not expecting that at all.
yeah. No, the film definitely gets a lot more violent than expected. Um, but one thing I will say is like he does handle the violence very well. It's very tastefully. Or even
Mm-hmm.
when Eddie does step on the landmine and he does blow up and loses limbs, like you see from a lot of like the other characters, especially Dorway Lindo as Paul, you see the trauma that they're feeling because this is something that they thought they'd left behind a while ago, and now
Right.
the ghosts of Vietnam are coming back to haunt them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a very interesting scene to see, especially when Paul's son steps on the landmine, David, and he gets incredibly scared because like he does not want his son to like go through what he went through, and now he's like on a landmine.
Right.
So I thought that scene as a whole was just like really tense and really just like well made. Like that's a scene where I will say like slow pace really helped it because like you're just like at the edge of your seat, like, oh, this guy doesn't blow up.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, you, you really clench your butt cheeks the whole time. It's like, oh, I mean, even though like, all right, Jonathan Majors, he's probably gonna make it out of this, but still, just watching that whole scene play out honestly, it was my favorite scene of the movie. I will say though, I thought they kind of got over Eddie pretty quickly. Um,
Mhm.
where it's just like, oh no, Eddie's dead. All right, let's save Jonathan Majors. And I think you hear one of them say, "Oh, God is good." It's like, well, not for Eddie though. That guy got his whole body blown in half. But
I mean
yeah,
that like we said, like they don't spend a whole lot of development on the other Bloods. The ones who get the most attention is Paul, Otis, and Storm and Norm.
mm-hmm.
But definitely Eddie and Melvin, they definitely get the short end of the stick. And so I could see where like yeah that became a problem because they're like, oh, thank God David's okay, but like what about the other guy? Yeah, the guy without limbs.
Yeah, right. And I mean, they tried. I think Spike Lee tried because they're kind of doing this backstory for him, like the last second, where it's like, "Oh, I'm not really rich. I don't really have all these dealerships like that anymore." And I guess that was supposed to play into like what they end up doing with Eddie shared at the end of it all.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it still kind of felt like, I would have liked to see like excuse me, a fine tune on this script.
Yeah, definitely. That doesn't say like the script doesn't have its great moments. The moment my favorite part of it was really when Delroy Lindo was just like monologuing to the camera. That's where like he really put on his Oscar worthy performance, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just like expressing like all the pain and the trauma he's felt in Vietnam and how how the Vietnam hasn't killed him and America hasn't killed him, and so like nothing's gonna kill Paul. And he just really, it's at a point where you really feel like Paul is really losing his mind because of a lot of the guilt he's feeling, a lot of the trauma he's had to deal with, and especially after that scene, we learned that he was the one who accidentally killed Storm and Norm. There was a Viet Cong soldier that came up behind them, and he just immediately gut reaction, turned around, sprayed his gun, and the bullets hit Norm. And that was their. They even say in the film that was that was their Martin, that was their Malcolm, and he just killed their idol, and like that's a whole level of guilt that like not a lot of people deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was because and I even think like having Delroy Lindo's character be a Trump supporter, like that greatly added to it, especially with his guilt that he's carried through that, for those whole years. Him killing Norm. Him being a Trump supporter, you kind of see is like, all right, well, he kind of fends out for himself. He puts, the needs of him and his family above anybody else. So as the story progresses, you can see it's like he's still battling with that internal trauma, but he's just trying to make it home. So, he could support and provide what the United States should have provided for him, but he's just taking it into his own hands now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting how Spike Lee like approaches that. I remember I read about how Delroy Lindo was supposed to play a Trump supporter character. I thought it would just be more of a one-off joke, but they actually do like layer it into the film in a really interesting way, especially with the way like he interacts with the other Bloods. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting and really well done.
Well, I will say also, I like the inclusion of Marvin Gaye in this because they use a lot of tracks from his album "What's Going On." Um, and if you know that album, it's a concept album about a Vietnam vet who returns home to America just to find out, well, there's still a war going on here. So it's like you hear his lyrics throughout the whole film that it directly, well, obviously parallels to the story that the Five Bloods are experiencing now.
Oh,
And
without
it's
a
like
doubt.
little touches like that that's like, Spike Lee really is like a masterclass of a filmmaker. And it's like it baffles me how anybody could just completely dismiss his work like that.
Exactly. The one thing I love about like that Marvin Gaye inclusion was that like it is like an acapella of Marvin Gaye's music, so it's like without the background instrumentals. It's really just Marvin Gaye, like putting it's 100% his voice and his emotions, and like you really start to like feel that. I think towards the end of the film when the Bloods are like traveling through Vietnam and like trying to defend themselves, and it just like really goes to show that like that raw emotion that like Spike Lee always puts in his films. And one thing I will say I loved the transitions between like the flashbacks in Vietnam and the modern day stuff. Like the way he used the aspect ratio. The one shot like that definitely stuck out to me was when they were in a firefight with some Vietnamese. I'm not sure what they were, if they were like soldiers or bandits or whatever. But they're in a fight, and Delroy Lindo closes his eyes, and you see the aspect ratio change, and it's like you see that he's going back to Vietnam, going back to the days of the war, and that's just like a really creative way to show that trauma that he's feeling.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's like he never really left the war. I mean, I think a bunch of characters say that throughout the entire film, but it's like even after the war, it never really ends.
And keep in mind, these
It's
are
like,
a lot of like the Vietnam films we see, like are films that take place like in the days of Vietnam or like a couple years after, like Rambo or Apocalypse Now, Platoon. These are older men. Like this takes place in 2020, and the Vietnam War ended in '75, and this is stuff that they're still carrying with them to this day.
for sure.
Especially because like they weren't given the proper treatment when they got back home. They were still treated as irrelevant. And so, yeah, I just really love the way Spike Lee approaches that. Like I said, very messy in some parts, but like that raw emotion just like really pulls through and like really grabs you and like it keeps you glued to the screen.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go back to the transitions when it goes back to the Vietnam stuff. Because I saw a lot of people complaining about, well, just multiple things for it. They're like, oh, this is shot pretty shoddy. Like, why does it look like this? The action looks kind of cartoonish. Why are they old men? And it's like, listen, that was all part of the art form. First of all, I like the fact, because even not only the aspect ratio, but even the audio, you could tell it's like, oh, yeah, it's trying to make it seem like it was shot in the 60s. It kind of feels like almost A-team-ish. And then the fact that if you see in the flashbacks, like Chadwick Boseman's character is the only one that looks like his younger self. All the other Bloods, they're played by their actual actors. But that was a style. I mean, it might have been for budget purposes, but that was a stylistic choice because when they're thinking back in their memories, obviously Chadwick Boseman's character Norm, he doesn't grow older. He gets killed. So when they're reminiscing on all this, obviously they're going to put themselves back where they were, just in their current form. It's
Mm-hmm.
like stuff like that. It's just like Spike Lee. He really goes over the top with just stylistic choices, and just as a filmmaker, I don't have enough good things to say about them, man. It's almost genius.
Definitely. And you definitely touched on like how like cartoonish it looks sometimes. And I feel like the point of that, it was kind of like show how great of a soldier Norm was and how like
Mm,
much of an influence he was on the other Bloods. Because they even said like, he was the best soldier that they knew, and that they really go to show that in a lot of like the flashback action scenes where they're fighting the Vietnam. Like
right.
he is their Rambo, like, everybody loves Rambo, but like, where's the African American Rambo? Well, here's Chadwick Boseman.
Exactly. For sure, man. Man. I want to watch this again now.
Same.
The more we talk about it.
But yeah, so any final thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was great. Like you said, it does get kind of messy. Particularly like the second half, I thought kind of got a little too wacky. Just when earlier I was saying like it's kind of a mix of Apocalypse Now and Uncharted. Um, the Uncharted aspect of it is kind of like, doesn't feel out of place, but it just feels like kind of goofy. But it's
Mm-hmm.
entertaining. You got Spike Lee who wants to talk about so much within this film. There's so many conversations to be had with it. But laid on top of it, you have a pretty fun action film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's on Netflix. I know everybody has Netflix. There's no excuse not to watch this film. Um, yeah, props to you. Hats off to you, Spike Lee. I can't wait for the next thing.
Same. Yeah, that's just like the one thing you always say about Spike Lee, where yeah, his films can be sometimes messy, sometimes unfocused. They have a lot to say, but at the same time, he always just makes them entertaining. They're always funny, or
Hmm.
they're always fun to watch. And that's one thing you can always look forward to with a Spike Lee joint, that you're going to learn a lot, and you're also going to be entertained while doing so. And that's always the best type of entertainment. That's the best type of media, where you can just like really enjoy it and have fun with it, but yet you still come away with a lot to think about.
For sure.
So that's been our review of The Five Bloods, which ends our Spike Lee marathon. This has been a very interesting journey for us to return to Spike Lee, especially considering what's been going on in America right now with the Black Lives Matter movement. Hell, not even just America, all around the world with the Black Lives Matter
Hmm.
movement. So, yeah, this has been a fun journey. Thank you for joining us, and join us next week when we discuss whatever we discuss, because there are no new movies out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Judd Apatow just dropped a movie, but I'm not interested in watching
Same.
it.
Maybe I'll watch it. Like, I've heard some good things, but I don't know. I don't know if it has enough for us to talk about.
I mean, I would like to watch it, but not for a $20 rental. That's just outrageous.
Yeah. So from here, let's just go into what we've seen throughout the week. Jillian, tell us what you've been watching.
Okay, well, there wasn't really that much. Last week I talked about Insecure. I finally caught up with it. The season finale's tonight. At the time of recording this, so I'll just say that from what I've seen so far, it still holds up. I think the show's phenomenal. Um, Outside of that, what I've actually finally watched after so many years and so many people telling me about this show, Gravity Falls, and that show is really, really good. Um, and I saw it like when it first came out on Disney XD a few years ago, and I thought it was just, oh yeah, it's another SpongeBob Camp Lazlo type of uh, cartoon sitcom. It's funny, but nothing really too much to take into. But then my little brother started watching it these past few weeks, and honestly, I've been really engaged with the storytelling of it. If you don't know Gravity Falls, it's you have these twins, the Dipper and Mabel. Over the summer, they stay over their Grunkle Stan's mystery shack in this place in the pines called Gravity Falls. And of course, the whole town, it's mysterious and it has these kooky monsters and creatures. And Dipper, throughout the whole series, he's trying to dig down into the mysteries and intricacies of what's going on there. And where it goes to, it's like, yo, this is really it pulls at you emotionally. It's funny. The characters are great, and yeah, just all around, it's like, wow, this is. I don't want to say it's like on the level of Avatar: The Last Airbender or anything, but yeah, man, it's almost there as far as storytelling goes. It's only 2 seasons, and they're like 20 episodes each, so 40 episodes all around. But yeah, it's told very tightly, and it has a great voice cast too. Well, I don't want to go down the whole list, but the one surprise they got was J.K. Simmons in here, who plays a very prominent character. I don't want to spoil it or anything, but once he comes on the show, it's like, yeah, this is a show, man. Everybody stop sleeping on Gravity Falls and go check it out.
Yeah, Gravity Falls is a show that my younger siblings used to watch and really love. Even my mom got hooked into it. I always like whenever I walked into the living room, I would see them watching it. I would see it on the TV, and from what I saw, it was very entertaining. Very like well made. So it's definitely something I've been meaning to check out for the longest time.
Yeah, I'd recommend it, man. So it's really good.
Anything else you've seen this week?
Honestly, that was about it. I've just been playing GTA San Andreas all week. And God damn, that game is hard, man. Jesus. It's only hard because the controls are outdated, but it's still like one of my favorite games of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess I'll go into what I've been watching. I finally watched Jojo Rabbit, which came out last year. For some reason, just like at the time I hit, there were like a bunch of other movies that came out at the same time that that fall of last year was like very overwhelming when it came to like movies because like all of like
No doubt.
summer 2019 and with beginning of 2019 were just like very underwhelming. Um, and then like the fall season came in and like we just got hit with a plethora of great movies, and I didn't get to see all of them because like there were just too many. But I finally watched Jojo Rabbit for the first time this week, and I gotta say I loved it. Um, this is this has got to be probably like top three Taika Waititi movies for me. But like one thing, like he has this just like unique sense of humor that's like specific to him and his like New Zealand background. But at the same time, like while he hits you with this really great sense of humor, he's also hitting you with a lot of like really raw emotions. And he really allows you to against like the mindset of these characters and how like Jojo really can be like brainwashed by the Nazi propaganda, and how his relationship with this Jewish girl like really changes him and turns him around, and especially his relationship with his mother and how he's still just a kid going through a really tough time, going through like the Nazi occupation, and how he has to deal with his father not being there and his mother having a different viewpoint from him. So yeah, I highly recommend Jojo Rabbit. If you get the chance, rent it and check it out. And it's just an all-around fun time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's kind of hard to say about a movie about Nazi kids, but the thing is, like, Taika Waititi, he really does. I mean, I don't want to give anything away for the movie, but he really does just go for it with it, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah, because it has its moments where it gets incredibly dark, but yet he really balances it out with these really human moments that are like really touching and like that really connect you to these characters, which is something I really enjoy about Taika Waititi.
For sure. Like that shoelace scene, man. Like, God damn, he's a great filmmaker too.
Really is. Speaking of Taika Waititi, what we do in the shadows. The season 2 finale just came this week, and I gotta say it's an all-around really entertaining show. I probably prefer the movie more than the show. But yeah, you get different unique characters: Laszlo, Nandor, Guillermo. And I will say the one thing that the show does better than the movie is that it really elaborates more on the familiar character Guillermo, where he's just like at a point where he's just like really fed up with the vampires, and he's like, "Guys, you've been gaslighting me for like years now. I want to be a vampire now." And like, "Oh, we'll get around to it. Now go clean up the blood." And yeah, they just have these characters going to like really ridiculous situations, especially like compared to like vampires like being put in the 21st century, and like how they have to like deal with the internet and with like public transportation and stuff like that. There was a really funny episode with Bloody Mary and chain emails where Nandor opened up his email for the first time in years, and he had to send the chain email to like 10 other people, or else he would get cursed. Or they believed he believed he would get cursed, but like, everybody knows those are fake. I got those like all throughout middle school. Like they were so annoying.
Yeah, right.
But like they 100% believed in the curse, and it was hilarious. So yeah, definitely check out the show. It's on FX. You can stream it on Hulu right now, both seasons. And it's just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, so I remember you were telling me about it last time. Because I really loved the movie. So I don't know, I never watched the show, but I'm gonna check it out though.
Yeah,
Seems
and then
funny.
and then one last thing I saw this week, I watched Run on HBO. Um, the premise of the show is that there were these two people in college, like they had a relationship, and I guess at some point they broke it off. But they made a pact that one of them would text the word "run" to the other, and then if the other responded with the same word "run," they would meet up in New York in Grand Central Station, and they would travel across America for a week, and they will decide whether or not they want to get back together and spend the rest of their lives together. Very interesting premise that leads to like a lot of like really great humor. And but the other thing it does too is like it really does explore these two characters in like in their middle age, because they made this pact in college when they were like 19 years old, and now they're both almost 40, and they've changed a lot since then. One of the characters has gone on to like have a family, and the other one is now like a famous inspirational talker. Um, and so it really does a great job of like exploring these two characters and like where they are in their lives. Phoebe Waller-Bridge shows up towards the latter half of the season, and I didn't recognize her at first because like she had a British accent and she had longer, straighter hair. So at first I didn't realize it was her, and then I was like, oh wait, that's Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yeah, she was great in Fleabag. Um, but yeah, this is a really entertaining show, really fun show to watch. I would say the ending does leave a bit to be desired, but I believe they're from what I can tell from the ending, like they want to expand the story more. So maybe we'll get a second season. But it's definitely a show worth checking out.
Yeah, I think I've seen the trailer for it, but I never haven't heard much about it. But I trust your opinion. I might check it out.
Yeah, definitely. It's only 7 episodes long. Each episode is about 30 minutes, so it's not even uh, a hard watch. I finished it in all of 2 days.
Yeah, I gotta say, I prefer. I mean, I guess it's always dependent on the show, but I prefer that format for a lot of series where let's stick with 8 episodes or less than 10 episodes, and not every episode needs to be an hour long. Like
Yeah,
it helps with
yeah,
the
I gotta
pacing
agree.
a lot.
It just depends on certain shows. Like I really love like how Breaking Bad has things where like each episode's 40
Hmm.
minutes and like there's like 13 episodes long, but it fits for the Breaking Bad pace because it is a slow paced show.
Yeah,
Something like Run, like it's a very quick paced comedy, and so yeah, you don't need to stretch it out for all that long.
yeah. Because I think I don't. Did I talk about Ozark? No, that was for something else. But like with Ozark on Netflix, that's a show where it's like I get the pacing of it, but a lot of those episodes do not need to be 47 minutes long, man. Like, especially when you actually count where the minutes stretch out, it's literally lingering scenes of them walking down the hallway. It's like, what the hell does this add? You're
Well,
just padding out time.
one thing I will say about Netflix and their shows, they do have a definite pacing problem with a lot of their
Hmm.
shows. The one where I felt it like really hard was like their Netflix shows. Not their. We were talking about Netflix, duh.
The Marvel shows.
The Marvel shows, yes. Sorry, Ines, I just woke up. Um, but yeah, so I definitely felt that pacing problem with the Marvel shows. Like, each season was like 13 episodes long. Could have been 8. But yeah, it's pacing with television is like very different from like pacing with film, and so
Mhm.
every now and then you get something that feels like it drags on for way too long.
For sure. And it's also gotten to the point now where I just fast forward through sex scenes because it's like, all right, man, you
Mhm.
guys are really dragging this off.
Yes, they do. Um, but yeah, this will be the end of the episode. Thank you very much for watching. Jalen, where can people find you online?
Good. Find me or follow me on Letterboxd, Jalen Michael, or follow me on Reddit at jmike127.
You can follow me on Letterboxd, Alexander Zapeta, and then you can follow me on Twitter as Jedi Master Alex. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and tune in next time. Bye.
Later.